Hi, welcome to Professor Kev Show. As you say, I got my friend Lynne Gauthier with us, and she's from RX Games. Good afternoon, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, my friend. So before we jump in and talk about RX Games, tell me a little bit about you as a human being.
People would describe me as intense. Uh, I tend to be one that if I see a problem, I'll speak my mind, very direct. And sometimes I have trouble letting things go. So when I see a problem, I want to fix the problem. I can get like the bee in my bonnet and just not let it go until the problem's fixed. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? Sometimes it helps me accomplish things or do things that other people aren't really willing to step in and do. Other times, I'm like a social media warrior and ticking off a lot of people. So
That's a pretty good summary. So let's talk a little bit about RX Games. What need did you see? What opportunity?
My training is both as a clinician and as a scientist. And when I was in the clinic, I was trying to bridge the two aspects of my training, both the clinical side of things and what I've been doing in research. And some of the treatments that I was trying to use in the clinic, they'd been researched for 20, 30 years and just hadn't gotten into clinical practice. And they gave much better outcomes for patients than the existing treatments that they're given. So that ticked me off. It got my moral compass going. And I basically said, there's a huge clinical need here. I'm frustrated that I can't do the kind of things I want to do in the clinic because they just don't fit into the way that the healthcare system works. Patients don't have enough visits to be able to do these intensive treatments to stimulate brain plasticity and to get the outcomes that they wanted. I worked a lot with stroke survivors, brain injury survivors, people with MS, so people whose lives have been really flipped upside down and they're struggling with managing a disability as well as other aspects of their life. And then to not be able to serve those people as well as I thought they should be served, it it motivated me to change the what I was researching and try to make it more relevant and try to bridge the gap between what's being done in the research lab and clinical care. And because I know a lot of engineers, I'm married to an engineer, and I do a little programming myself. I look to technology as a way to try to bridge that gap. So at the time, new technologies had come out in gaming and motion capture. So, like the Microsoft Kinect sensor could see your body movements. And I said, well, can we take something that's being used for video games and then use it for rehab? If we can see people's body movements, we can use it for therapy and they can do it at home and it can give them much more intensive practice than they get if they're only limited to, oh, I come in and into the clinic and I work 2 hours a week with a therapist. Well, can we scale that and do it much more intensively and deliver some of these research-based intensive therapies, but at home because insurance is not going to pay for that many hours in the clinic.
Yep.
So that's what started the project. And we we started by just proof of concept, make sure the patients like it, they're adhering to what they need to be doing, that the technology works. And then we're successful with that piece of it, built an initial game to use for stroke rehab. And then we started to do some clinical trials with it to say, can we get as good outcomes with this technology-based approach that uses technology at home in between when they come and see a therapist? And then we did those randomized clinical trials, multi-site trials, and had a really strong evidence base that we can get the same outcomes or better, depending on what aspect of functioning you're looking at, when we use this technology-based approach compared to what they're currently getting in clinical care. So we were able to improve outcomes without changing the amount of time that the patient had to be with the therapist. And then, I was sort of reluctant to do the entrepreneurship thing because I hadn't been trained in that. I was a clinician, I was a scientist, I was already wearing a lot of hats. But since we had such positive results with that, I didn't want it to just die in a research lab and get stuck there. And the patients, the people who were in our clinical trials are like, well, when can we get this? How do we actually keep doing
Hmm.
this and keep improving? So I felt like it would be morally wrong just to say, okay, we did our study, we published it. Isn't that nice knowledge to have? And then therapy continues the way it has been, not using these evidence-based things that we've created. So I felt like it was more of an obligation to then go and get it out there and change the way that things are actually done in clinical practice. So that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey.
Tell me about your patients and their feedback on your concept.
Yeah, so the patients feel like a couple of things. One, some of them really appreciate that they don't have to go to as many appointments. So they feel like, oh, I can do things at home. I don't have to go in as frequently. It's not that they don't ever want to go in and meet with a therapist. That's still a very important part of the process. But some of them feel like, oh, if I only have to go in once a week instead of going in 3 times a week, that's just much less strain on my family to drive me. A lot of the folks that I worked with, only about 1/3 of them could drive because they've had strokes and brain injuries, and it affects their ability to drive safely. So that was there was a big concern that they were inconveniencing other family members to try to take them to appointments. Some of them also lived really far away. So I had patients that would commute in 2 hours to come to a therapy appointment. So they're spending half their day in the
Yeah.
car driving just to attend an appointment. So if we can do virtual things using technology, and then a lot of what the therapist can do when they're partnered with technology can be done virtually. It's looking at how are you using your weaker arm, your weaker leg for everyday activities. Show me how you're doing these activities. They can set up a camera and do that at home. So if they're getting an opportunity to get that intensive motor practice through technology, which is essentially most of what the therapists are doing in the clinic with them. They can do a lot of that now at home with the technology, and the therapist can use their extensive knowledge base to help them. Well, now here's how you apply this to your everyday life. Let's talk through these things. Let's look at the safety of different things, and trying to actually use and apply what they've learned in therapy. And that can be done mostly virtually.
All right, Lynn, it's crystal ball time, my friend. What's the future hold for the idea?
All right, so today we just launched a Wefunder, so it's an exciting kind of flux time. So we'll see where that goes. But the goal is to be able to take it direct to consumer. So rather than having to have a prescription where, here's your prescription for your exercise, you're working with a therapist, that's great, but not everybody can access a therapist, right? Some people are really far away. Some people just don't have insurance.
Yep.
So we really wanted to make it accessible to everybody. And then a lot of times people are managing chronic conditions. So they'll have been to therapy, they kind of know what to do, but just trying to maintain their long-term progress is really hard. So our model now is going to be a direct to consumer. So it's an app and it's a monthly prescription, a monthly subscription. So, for less than what it would be for one copay in therapy, they can do unlimited
Oh,
exercise and therapy for the whole month, and month to month. And they have complete control over what exercises they do. The app itself progresses automatically. So as people are improving in their therapy, the games get harder. It requires a bigger range of motion to play. So the app is doing a lot of what the therapist would do to help people maintain what they've learned in therapy. And now we're really trying to get it out to the consumer and also starting to target the fitness space as well, because disability fitness is a really big gap. people with disabilities, they can't go to oftentimes gyms just aren't accessible for them. The equipment doesn't work for them. And so they don't have opportunities to really exercise, move their body, improve their health and wellness. So in our app, recently we've created a whole bunch of games for fitness specifically. So not just for rehab, but also for health, wellness, fitness, cardiovascular, exercise types of games, and expanded as well into sports and performance. So the markets that we're trying to target with our app are typically the people who need to be exercising, but just haven't found that niche. They're not typically the people who are going to the gym several times a week and have their fitness spaces. They're folks who are kind of on the outskirts of fitness or needing to get physically back to where they can do what they used to do before, managing chronic conditions, or they're already doing sports and then they just want to get that little bit of extra performance boost, but to try to make it exciting to do the boring stuff like, oh, you need to work on your vertical jump. Like who just likes to sit there and jump? It's hard, right? Most people don't enjoy that. So we gamify it, we make it fun so that, you're having to jump as a bowling ball is rolling to you. You have to try to jump over it so that it doesn't hit you. And then if it hits you, it's funny and it just makes it much more fun.
Yep. So, Lynn, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? How can they learn more about it, the idea?
Yeah, so rxgames.com. And then we have a Wefunder page that we just launched today. So they can learn more about us, see some videos on our Wefunder page. We also have a LinkedIn page. So they can follow us there. There's a lot of research behind what we've developed that's posted on the LinkedIn page. And
Awesome.
we have a Facebook page as well.
Anyways, awesome. Lynn, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to call on the show. And as always, thanks for being my friend.
All right. Thanks for having me.